Good morning, Vietnam! Sorry, I just, really always want to do that.
Here we are, episode 3 of Two Book Nerds and a Microphone. I'm Hank.
And I'm Ian. I'm the cool one.
So you think.
I mean, I know. I do what I want.
So the last two episodes, episode 1 was Ian's Desert Island pick of 5 books, and episode 2 was mine.
And now that we have all the boring stuff out of the way, here's where the fun starts.
Here's where the fun starts.
Yeah. So, what's on our roster today?
I don't know, you said you were driving this thing today.
I don't know. I thought you said something about, high fantasy and comparing it to Dresden Files or something like that.
Yeah,
Something like that.
So you started reading Dresden Files this week.
And I'm trying to figure out why I haven't before this week, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the shin here. Because it's kind of freaking awesome.
Yeah, so I'm picking fuzzies off your shirt because
I just bought a wool sweater, and yeah, I'm learning how to deal with that.
So tell me what about what it is about Dresden that's got you excited right now?
Let's see. I read the first one in 3 days, and I've been reading the second one for 2 days, and I'm about to finish it probably tonight. And I think one thing that draws me to it is that Butcher writes in a style very similar to my own way. Like, he kind of cracks jokes the whole way. He talks directly to the audience, which is something I kind of like to do, break the fourth wall, so to speak. And I find that his style is so similar to the kind of things that I want to write. I'm like, oh my gosh, you write an entire series of books like this. Where can I find more?
Yeah, and the first person narrative to me, when I first picked up the first Dresden book, was a little off-putting at first, but only for a minute.
It was a little weird, but
it felt because you're not used to people writing like that,
right? And
but it's you acclimate to it very quickly, and you feel a very certain connection with Harry Dresden very quickly.
Oh yeah,
and he's an odd character.
It's like he's not perfect. He's got typical everyday problems, just like you and me, despite having magic, which you'd think would solve most of them. But apparently, according to the rules and laws of magic, you can't just fix everything with it. There's rules to it. There's limitations, and I'm like, all right, okay, I can get behind that. You're not all powerful. You have to. You have to work up to it. You have to save your energy because you're physically pouring physical energy into this stuff. You can't just wave your hand and your house is going to be clean. It's going to make you feel like you've just run a half marathon or something. I'm like, okay, all right, that makes sense. It's cool. It's cool. I like it. I dig it. I don't really know where I was going with that.
It's kind of like if you discover a magic typewriter and all of a sudden it doesn't fix all the problems.
Did you really just?
I'm just saying that
you just did that.
I'm just saying that there might be physical limitations even to things that are a little outside.
Because plot.
Because plot and because stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So you're digging it, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mild understatement.
So, probably hear Peaches, the wonder dog, outside barking at squirrels that live in the oak tree that hang out over the office and have been pelting me with acorns as I walk over here each day.
Note that they always like me and they don't pelt me.
Yeah.
Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, so Dresden is this, and we talked about this with several authors on author stories, but there's fantasy, and you think epic fantasy, high fantasy, in the vein of Tolkien, or Robert Jordan, or Brandon Sanderson, et al. Terry Brooks. What is the difference in that sort of fantasy to you and this other fantasy that is rooted in the real world? Dresden takes place in Chicago.
Right.
And it's normal, everyday Chicago with normal, everyday Chicago stuff going on. Mm-hmm. Yet there's this undercurrent of...
like medieval magic.
Like all this other stuff going on. What's your take on that?
I think high fantasy, you have a lot more freedom. You can build your own world. You can make your own rules. Like, physics doesn't have to work the way it does here. You can just, completely play with that.
Yeah.
It's a sandbox. You can do whatever you want. It's a big Lego kit. Have fun. Dresden-esque is probably a little more difficult to write. You're basing your characters in a very real world, and as such, you can't just dink around with all kinds of things like you could in a high fantasy. But it works. It's like you take the rules and limitations of this world, all the laws of physics and all the laws of, oh my gosh, I have this scheduling conflict, I have to go here and do this, and I gotta meet this person here and do that, and all the while I try to not get shot in the face with a bullet back mobster, So there are very real problems, and I think it's more relatable to an audience because we can sort of connect with the characters in this way, minus the getting shot in the face with the mobster part. If so, I'm sorry. We might want to get that taken care of.
I asked Jim Butcher this question when I interviewed him.
Because you do.
For Author Stories. I asked him, because he does write a typical kind of high fantasy series or epic fantasy series in the Codex Alera. And this, takes place in a fictional world, a typical fantasy world, and he got to build, the world, the structure, the government, the religion, the magic system, all from scratch. And I asked him what was easier, the world building in Dresden or the world building in Alera, and he said that Dresden was easier. And at first I thought that he would say the opposite, because he has complete control in Alera, whereas Dresden, he has to anchor that in real life Chicago.
Right.
So my thinking was it's easier to just create everything from scratch.
But I guess with that comes the responsibility of having to maintain that.
Exactly. And that's what he said, that it's, now you're responsible for the minutia, whereas Chicago is already there. All you have to do is observe.
Right.
Go walk around the city, or even, now with Google Maps, just
don't even leave the office.
Yeah, you can literally drive around, by flicking your mouse.
And yet all I do is look up pictures of my house. Huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. See what you could be doing?
Yeah.
So, and I guess, with my Weston stories, I kind of straddle the fence with that, because it is a fictional place. It's a fictional town, completely made up. It is, you cannot drive to it. It's a paper town to, borrow from
Mr. Green.
From Mr. Green.
I bet his favorite Beetle is John. His favorite color is green. If I had to guess. I'll be here all night.
Yeah, my favorite Beetle is George, by the way.
Why? I mean, I'm not hating, but why?
I think John gets more credit than he deserves.
He kind of does.
Yeah, I went on record as saying that I think John Lennon was a little overhyped.
I think Ringo's pretty cool.
I'd
like to hang out with Paul for a day.
With Paul for that day?
Oh yeah, play Guitar Hero with him.
I think you could probably crush him.
I think I could.
Yeah, but anyway, we digress. But yeah, that's the cool thing I think about Weston is that it's completely made up. Yet I have borrowed from real places and taken the best and the worst parts of places that I actually know and made an amalgam that comes out in this little town.
Sweet.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
So Dresden is this urban fantasy.
Uh-huh.
And what are some other things that you like that kind of in that vein
of urban fantasy,
or this fantasy that's anchored in reality? If you want to,
most of Neil Gaiman stuff is anchored in real places.
Right.
Coraline is set in London, and American Gods is set, of course, all around America.
By the way,
yes.
Why did the Coraline movie take place in the Pacific Northwest?
I am still trying to figure that out. Okay,
What the entire crap?
All right, hold on, because there's a line of reference in American Gods that tells about this little girl, a Lovat girl, who goes missing, is kidnapped and everything, and here I am about to spoil it, but it's found out that this old guy, but the main guy...
Spoilers, it's been out 10 years.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that Shadow, our protagonist, meets up with this old guy in the Pacific Northwest, they become friends, yada yada yada. Well, Shadow figures out that the old guy is the guy responsible for all these kidnappings, whereas this same Lovat girl that goes missing in Coraline, which is set in London, but the movie takes place in the Pacific Northwest, where Shadow is kidnapped by the creepy spider lady, and I'm like, okay, alright, this is like, whoa, okay, this is like a parallel universe where this can work. How does that work? Because, this is fitting together perfectly. You're using the same names and locations, even though the canon is different because it's a film and a movie. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I thought it was cool.
Which brings, and I know we've got to get back to your original point about Neil Gaiman that I interrupted you with. But, I talked to Michael Bunker the other day about this deal that he made to option the film rights to Pennsylvania.
Good job. And
we were talking about other film adaptations, and Michael was saying that he was, beginning to write a screenplay.
Sweet.
And how much different it was because there are his words, not mine, paraphrased, that there are long sections in Pennsylvania that can that are either all action or all kind of either dialogue or exposition, and that if you tried to translate that to screen, it's going to be really boring.
You got some dialogue in there to explain it.
You've got to mesh these two so that you get this visual and oral, thing going together. And so, I wonder what that's like when you have this thing that you have fully realized and you've written, and then someone else takes and interprets that for screen. I wonder if that was a thing that Neil Gaiman was really upset about when they changed, or is it one of those things that he just shrugged his shoulders and said, okay,
I guess as long as you keep the heart of the story, the small things don't necessarily matter if you handle it properly.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that details aren't important. I personally love details. That's what I root around for, hence the revelation I had when I was reading American Gods. And so, you don't pick up on that unless you pay attention. But
right.
I think if you keep the element and what your moral is, then you have some liberties to change some things.
Yeah.
Don't go crazy with it, but do what you have to make it work. And if that means you have to move someone from England to America, then there are worse things that can be done.
Yeah. By the way, did you see Jason Gurley's photo that he posted with his wife and
I want to hug that man. I need to hug that man.
Or Coraline and her other parents for Halloween. It was amazing.
I saw
Shout out to Jason Gurley.
You the man. You are the man.
So anyway, do you remember what your point was that you were getting to before I interrupted you?
Not entirely. Where were we? Let's see.
I don't know. Something about Gaiman and
urban fantasy
and his stuff.
Something about
American Gods being in America all over the place.
Yeah, it's basically you can relate to the characters a whole lot more when you put people in an environment that you are familiar with. I've never really spent a whole lot of time in Denver, but because I'm familiar with it, once Shadow and everyone goes there, I can kind of paint a mental picture. I'm like, okay, well, that's that's a cafe that I could go visit anytime I want to. Maybe not. Maybe they changed it now. I don't know. But there's probably a cafe in Denver, and I could pretend I was Shadow sitting at a cafe,
True.
Or, I could go to the police station in Chicago, and I could carry a little wooden stick and a fedora and a duster and pretend I was Harry Dresden. That would probably be frowned upon, but I'd do it. I could. Maybe.
By the way, if you notice, never once in the Dresden books does Harry wear a hat.
In the front cover, he's always wearing a hat.
Every front cover, he's wearing a hat. Conversely, his new book, The Cinder Spires, The Aeronaut's Windlass, the character wears a hat. On the cover, he does not have a hat.
Okay, so...
I'm just going to let that just rattle around in your head for a minute. Not that it makes any difference, but...
It does to me.
I think somebody's screwing with Jim.
I think I am. It's messing with me.
Yeah. So...
Alright.
Yeah, so just to put that out there.
Wow.
So, epic fantasy, high fantasy. Are there any series that you love that are just completely off the wall, new worlds that have no connection to our, air quotes, real world?
Have you ever read Lord of the Rings?
Aside from Lord of the Rings.
Okay, now you're just messing with me.
Aside from Lord of the Rings. Because, that's kind of a given. I want to say that Lord of the Rings transcends genre.
Yeah.
And I think that's, probably being a little, book nerdish to say that because obviously it's a fantasy story. But, it's kind of entered the cultural zeitgeist, as something entirely different.
This is a technicality, but considering you used like 47 of them in the last episode, I'm going to do it right now. The Circle Trilogy by Ted Dekker.
Yeah.
Half of which takes place in America in a series of flashbacks.
Okay.
Or forwards. I don't know how you would term that, but if you've read the book, you understand what I'm saying. If not, what are you doing with your life? Go read that book. Or all three of them, I should say.
Wait, doesn't
yes.
the Circle Trilogy have 4 books?
Yeah, but he kind of put that out after the trilogy was out as an obligatory 4th part.
Okay, alright.
Because it's a circle.
But he still calls it the Circle Trilogy.
I mean, it's easier to make a circle with 4 than it is 3, because one would be technically a triangle if we're getting basic geometry, even though a circle is just a really fat triangle, but, I'm not going to carry on the path. Sorry, I'm a nerd. Anyway.
That's what I'd say.
Anyway, the second half, he keeps switching from modern-day Denver into hyper-future wilderness. And it's basically an allegory of the Bible. Like, the first book is an allegory of the book of Genesis. Second book is an allegory of any of the 4 Gospels. It's never really clear which. They all kind of have the same story. And the third book is an allegory of the book of Revelation. But the way that he carries out describing the world after this one is, so trippy. It's awesome. There are trees, like blue trees, okay? I'm not talking trees of blue. I'm the trunks of the trees are blue, and they have blue leaves, and they have pink fruit on them, and that's just normal, okay? That's nobody questions that. It's okay, and you eat the fruit of these trees, and you get superpowers. Not really, but it's like eating a hunk of adrenaline every time you bite into this piece of fruit, and
I need some of that.
And there are no rules in this world. It's physics doesn't comply. If you want to just jump up and start flying, that's perfectly cool. If you want to throw water in the air and manipulate it like Play-Doh, go right ahead. I'm all right, that's cool. Where can I get some of that? And the bats talk. That's cool. Big bats fly around and they talk to you. Hey Joe, how's it going? I'm all right.
So the world is, but still, that's even kind of anchored in the here and now, isn't it?
Not exactly, because it's an entirely different world.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Now the flashbacks, yeah, that's right here and now. You got to comply with those rules, but in the other scenes, the future, if you will, that's completely different. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about a series like Pat Rothfuss's Name of the Wind and Wise Man's Fear?
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely newly realized world.
That is. which it was easier for me to imagine it as, like, Renaissance Europe, just to give me a mental image of what I was looking at.
Well, it does have that feel to it with the
It really
bands
does.
of traveling actors and musicians, and you very much get that
Renaissance feel.
kind of feel to it. Kind of a Chaucer-esque
Sort of.
period. Yeah.
And it's like...
And there are no orcs.
No elves. Now there are a different race of people that are just different, but he doesn't really go into detail.
Right.
Like Velathani.
Right.
Like, he doesn't describe them as elves, but I kind of picture them as Legolas, sort of, just because the way that they're so nimble and reserved and more noble, it seems.
Right. And he does have the Fae.
Yes.
Yes.
That's just trippy. Like
that is very trippy. Like
like
you're just bouncing along in this Renaissance world, and
this tree starts spouting off prophecy to you, and I'm like, what even?
Yeah, it's almost like he just put an acid trip in the middle of
It's
the
like
book.
he did. It's like, what? Like, water nymphs come out and mess with your head, and, like, time has no bearing at all. What even, man? Like,
yeah.
All right.
So, what about Song of Ice and Fire? That's another fantasy series that, even though there are fantastical places,
dragons,
and later dragons and some magic, and then you got the folks north of the wall, the
like
Ice Walker,
the zombie,
Yetis, zombie Yeti giant kind
people
of
things.
But in the earlier books, it's very much War of the Roses, which which he says is kind of based on. So that's another series that straddles that fence.
Like, even a map of Westeros is reminiscent of Great Britain.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah. So, I
don't know. You like jazz?
I'm not a big fan of jazz.
Not really either.
Not a big fan of jazz. I know that's unpopular with a lot of people, but
we probably don't spend enough time in cafes in Denver.
Probably so.
Probably. That's
so.
our problem.
So, what books are you excited about coming up? We tend to talk a lot about fantasy.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What do you think endears fantasy to people?
Because we always want more than we have.
You think?
That's what I think personally. Example, I always just want to wave my hand and put the dishes away without having to actually get up and put them away. So when I read a book where you have telekinesis, okay, you got me. Like, who doesn't want to ride on the back of a dragon? Like, once in their life without getting burned to a crisp. Like, you read a book and, like, Aragon, oh my gosh, he's riding a dragon. That's just normal, okay? I'm like, it's an escape for people. Like, I'm not saying life is boring, but when you go to school and then you go to work, and you come home and do homework, and you go to sleep, and you go to school, and you go to work, and you do homework, and you go to sleep. You want something else to happen. And so you read a book. And it's like, okay, this guy just killed a dragon. Now he's riding a griffin. Look at him. He's side saddle. He's riding a horse. Bareback,
So are you saying that there's some innate human desire, possibly even a need, for people to escape their present reality and hope for something bigger than themselves? But because you've got like literary fiction,
right?
And there's people clown on people that write literary fiction. And you write a 700-page book and nothing happens,
right?
People just sit around and talk about their feelings and such. And
you need a hug. I mean, you could solve that right there without 700 pages.
Right. And then you've got a Brandon Sanderson book that, is literally 400,000 words. 1,600 pages. And it's just the opening chapter of the story that he's telling,
He's like, we're not done yet.
Like the Way of Kings, and then the follow-up, what's the name of it? Yeah. Anyway,
that book.
Yeah, it's like 1,600 pages.
And he's not even done. He's just getting started.
It's a 10-part series, and yeah,
bruh.
So there's something to be said for people will invest their time, their energy into this completely fabricated world where things happen that don't happen here.
Right.
There's obviously something that people love about those kind of stories.
Otherwise, fantasy games like Skyrim wouldn't sell, and Harry Potter books wouldn't sell, and people wouldn't want to buy Dragon plush toys from Game of Thrones,
Yeah, nobody buys video games where you drive to the grocery store and find the best bargain on eggs.
Because it's boring!
Yeah. So fantasy...
provides that escape that we all need.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people like to go to sleep, too. That's some science for you. Dreams, escape reality, boom, let's write it. Or not, I don't know. Probably someone already done that, but they probably made a song about it and fireflies and stuff.
Have you ever read one of my books? Because they all involve people with dreams.
Yeah.
So
that was good. That was fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, I asked you a minute ago, what are you excited about coming up? Books or movies from books or, anything got your attention?
Suicide Squad count?
Sure.
Because I'm just going to say, I was not okay with the Jared Leto Joker look. I was not. However, it's been a year since they started filming, and it comes out on my birthday when I turn 21. I'm kind of stoked. I'm sorry. I'm stoked. I am. And I'm okay with it.
Can I just say this? Can I say this?
Go ahead.
There is an element of fandom in science fiction, fantasy,
where everything
comics.
has to be so-so.
Yeah, everything has to be just the way you imagine it to be. And we know people that will get just completely off the rails if a particular actor portrays something, and they just won't go see it, and we'll be very vocal about that.
But Suicide Squad.
And I'm just like, really? Like, you know what? I have decided that
you will run for president in 2016?
I will not. I would. I don't think I'm.
Not ready for that?
I don't think I'm that much of a narcissist.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna put that out there. I don't think that if someone makes an adaptation that I don't like, then it
respectfully
obviously
disagree.
It wasn't for me.
Right.
It's not for me. So
doesn't make it any less good for anyone else.
Yeah, if that's what you here's something for you. I grew up when the trilogy came out.
The trilogy.
The trilogy.
The trilogy.
The trilogy.
The trilogy.
The original Star Wars trilogy.
The trilogy.
First one came out when I was in first grade, and that was my adolescence. There's a whole generation of children that second trilogy
is the trilogy.
Is the trilogy to them.
And I'm sorry, but no.
And yeah, so
looking at you, Jar Jar.
Looking at you, Jar Jar. And you know what? I don't like it. Nope. I didn't like that second trilogy at all.
I did like episode 3. I mean, I'm just saying, watch it in Blu-ray and you'll have an emotional experience. It's just pretty. I'm
going to give you that.
Forget the plot. It's a pretty movie.
I'm going to give you that.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's not for me.
No.
It's not for me. So...
it resonates with people.
Yeah, so you know
it's
what?
Obviously good.
Let's all agree right now to let people enjoy what they enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, just sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
It's not for you, and it's obviously not about you.
Right.
So let people enjoy what they enjoy. Can't we all just get along?
Why can't we be friends? Okay.
You're going to make us pay for that song.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, stop it. So anyway, Suicide Squad, that's got you excited?
That does actually have me pretty excited. Batman vs. Superman. It's just a good time to be a nerd right now.
Yeah.
I'm fanboying so hard.
Yeah.
And you can make the argument, what we were talking about earlier, with Marvel and DC and grounding in reality and everything. Notice that Marvel always tends to use real cities like New York and everything, whereas DC always makes up their own cities like Gotham and Metropolis. And it's just, it's an interesting side point.
That is. And
I was trying to throw that in earlier, but I didn't know where to do it, so here we go.
Yeah. And I'm a DC fan.
I just am.
I'm just, yeah.
Sandbox,
So,
man.
You know what?
Sandbox.
Next week,
Yeah.
I think we need to talk comic book adaptations.
Let's do it.
I think that's going to be our show for next week. My thing that I'm excited for is, Pat Rothfuss.
Name of the Wind.
Name of the Wind has been optioned for movie and TV adaptations.
And if
And
you
not
need
to
to
mention the
cast
third
Bast, hi, how's it going? Here's my card. I can't give him a card over the radio, I'm sorry, but, we'll get there.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that and for the third book in that series to eventually
I need
come out.
that one.
Yeah.
Please?
Yeah.
Pretty please.
So yeah. Anyway, find the archives at hankgarner.com. Go over, click on the Amazon link, go do your normal shopping. Christmas is coming up.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
The Hanukkah season's coming up.
Yes.
The whatever gifting season you prefer, use the Amazon link.
You don't even have to have a season.
You don't even have to have a season. Go
buy your wife something.
Buy a book for someone. If there's a kid in your life,
they need a book.
You need to buy them a book.
That girl you see that you're trying to get her number.
You know what? Flowers wilt.
Books don't.
Books don't.
We need that on a plaque.
Although
we need that on a T-shirt.
You can tear the covers off of books.
Yeah, but we still need a T-shirt.
Yeah.
I think you holding a squirrel, looking stoically into the distance, with Old Glory behind you, and in Star Wars font. That's what you need.
We're signing off on that.
Yeah.
Have a good week, everybody.
Yeah. Bye.